patience. We had a substantive meeting today, so we went a little over, but appreciate you guys sticking around. Full transparency, the council was originally supposed to meet on Monday. We pushed it to today just to scheduling conflicts. And so we met at 1:30 today, and as you saw, we just concluded. But today we have our co-chair, Joe Guerrero, and our chair of our Committee on Tourism, Infrastructure, and Sports, along with the Tourism Recovery Task Force that was launched a few weeks ago, Alex Sablon, and we're here to answer any questions, kind of discuss what was talked about today at our meeting, and then way forward towards the end of the year. So, happy to take any questions.
Yeah, first one, and I noticed you guys kind of weeded out the crowd pretty quick afterwards. Is there going to be an opportunity to speak with some of the other members with the council as well?
Yes, good afternoon, Brad. Yes, I did invite the rest of the committee members, but I guess they're a little short on time and maybe camera shy, but yeah, they're welcome to join. And in fact, today I asked Council Member Alex Sablon to join. He also serves on the task force, which we recently created, if you're aware. And so wanted to give some updates on that, and maybe just going to brief you on where we're at with the council. So, but yeah, so you have specific questions? Or
yeah, I have. Yeah, in the initial meeting of GCEA, there were ideas that were raised, and those ideas were sorted into those that were can be achieved in short term and those that can be achieved in the long term, right? So just give us an update on those that were on the short term ideas that can be achieved in short term. I know there could be some updates now.
Okay, great question, and if I can have Alex answer that question later on when we talk about the task force, because that will directly reflect. But one of the things that we are still asking the committee chairs is to list the initiatives based on, again, we announced at the beginning of the council that we're going to review old plans, prior plans as well as some recent plans, and start to organize and kind of prioritize which ones are low-hanging fruit, and which ones are short, medium, and long term. So the committee members are hard at work doing that, and we talked about some of that already. And keep in mind that as we develop our list of initiatives, our role then is to hand it over to the governor and let the governor sort of endorse it. And if he says, okay, let's do it, then we'll go out and we'll make the announcement that this is the position of the government if he wants us to do that. So, but we'll share what we can, right? General things, kind of what we're doing, and some ideas that are public in nature, and so we'll discuss that later. Okay. But the committees have been meeting. I mean, one committee meets like every week or several times a week, and so there's a lot of meetings besides this monthly meeting. And one of the things we decided just today is to have more frequent meetings and not wait to just have one monthly meeting. So our next one is in a couple weeks. We're going to have another GCEA meeting. So the different committees can report and give more frequent updates on some of their initiatives. Okay. But what I wanted to do today is just assure the community and the public that the council is hard at work every day. It seems like both CJ and I, many of the committees, we're working on it behind the scenes, and so you'll be hearing more and more in the weeks coming. But I'd like to turn attention to one of the committees that I'm also a part of, which is the Tourism Task Force, to share some of our recent meetings and some of our ideas, which Chair, I think, sure, pass it on.
Yeah, so the Tourism Recovery Task Force met this past week, and we had a really good conversation. I think it was asked in the last meeting, why is there a task force when there are agencies that are already conducting this business at hand in tourism? And I think the one thing I want to stipulate to that is that with the task force, the public and private sector, there are a lot of nuanced conversations, if you will, that are not within the enabling acts of these particular organizations. There are broad strokes, broad issues that need to be really looked at, discussed, and maybe brought in from an outside perspective about how to go about maneuvering, if you will, to accomplish some of these tasks that we're talking about. But I did want to kind of highlight some of the conversations that we had and some of the action items that we're moving on. So to your direct question about immediate aspects, right? One of the immediate goals right now is to find pots of money that are available. We had good conversation with MBA as an example, in the idea that they could move some money around within their own budget to go after destination enhancement, rehabilitation of our tourist sites that we all see are in need of significant repair, right? Some significant, some could be just, let's get gates and
Water
fences and water blasting done and painting done, right? And that, to the point made by the chair last time, is incorporating also a PPP component. And so we've talked about the idea of engaging Commissioner Torres, who's doing an excellent job, along with DPL, DPW, Parks and Recs, the mayor's office, on all of the items. And this is Saipa, Antinian, and Rhoda getting to each of these items and helping in some way, form, or fashion recover from past typhoons, from just dilapidated locations, but going after them immediately. And so identifying these pots of money, coordinating with agencies of government, private sector, PPP, like we did in the last GISEA. We have the tools from the last GISEA that are still available and still can be issued out to organizations to help with this effort. And so that's something that we're going to land on very quickly. Like I said, I'm thankful that NBA is considering the idea of moving some pot of money around. Again, going after all the other agencies of government that have little pots of money and have offered to help in this realm. So that's kind of the immediate stuff. We have a walkthrough at the airport to also look at the arrival and departure areas. We've had discussions about how we could, how the airport is going to possibly maneuver over to specific gates, and so we can move assets into those locations where people are a lot more comfortable. The aircon is on. We're talking about expanding the added value, if you will, for the departure and arrival locations. It is through exit surveys, through our organizations in tourism that have reflected on just not so good experience on the departure areas. And so we want to put in added value, like charging stations, like lounge chairs. This is in the wee hours of the morning where people are tired and they want to somewhat rest a little. We're not going to have chairs for everyone, but at least allow for the opportunity to provide that. And that's something that we're looking at as a immediate resolution to that kind of issue.
When you're talking about maybe shifting some assets, is that potentially like closing the southern part of the airport and limiting everything to like gates 5 and 6?
I don't want to speak on behalf of CPA, but that's sort of what we're hearing that they would like to do, is to consolidate, save some money on utilities, but also work towards fixing the assets that need to be fixed to get a good, comfortable environment in one location.
So we are basically mobilizing financial resources from different sources,
As
putting
we all
together.
know, it's difficult today in this
Yeah, yeah,
environment.
yeah.
So any little bit
Whatever.
of pots of money that we could be tapped to and getting, we're trying to ask agencies of government that have offered the effort and offered the help. It's not going to be gangbusters amount of money, but it's going to be, again, some immediate relief and some immediate action on some of these issues that have been systemic within our visitor industry and I think just our local populace as well.
This task force is only supposed to be about 180 days, I think is what you guys mentioned. Do you see a value going forward in having regular meetings after that between CPA and MBA so that they can work together for these sorts of things?
Absolutely. As we all have, and we've talked about it at length in this meeting, as we have seen over the years, the Commonwealth has had to work tirelessly at the effort of keeping tourism going. Whether it has been in good days from 14 to 19 when you had flights converging on the Commonwealth because we had significant groups of people coming from source countries, there wasn't a need to operate and run the tourism industry with hard blocking of airlines to make it happen, if you will. And that's what's happening today. And so we've lost legacy carriage with Japan and now Korea. We have seen a significant reduction in overall flights into this particular island chain. And what we see across the pond is the 90% rule with KFTC, the ability for them to run planes that are significantly underutilized. We have subsidiaries of a former organization that was here running on operating flights at $100 a round trip. And so when you have that much carriage and coming in and putting an effort into a marketplace that's now at 45% capacity, yes, it's growing slowly, and we give that to GDP. But our attempt to try to fight a $60 million pot of money, which is what GVB will have in this effort to go after tourism, that's not what the CNMI had. And so we have to look at, to the point I made earlier, at kind of these nuanced ideas of how to achieve what we need in an end goal. And so we're looking strategically at getting partnerships with the federal government, with our foreign source market governments, and having good conversations about helping the CNMI in this effort.
How do you weigh the balance between, going after with subsidies for the airlines? I mean, essentially, it's like paying the airline to bring people here versus spending other money to improve what we have so that we would create demand organically from people actually wanting to be here.
And that's the point I'm making earlier. That's the point I'm making, is that we don't have the money for the subsidies, and so we're not gonna be able to do it. And so we have to look at this differently, and that's the conversations that we're having at the table. How do we go about this differently? How do we get our federal partners there? As you know, there is a transportation task force working group within the federal government to look at these efforts to helping the CNMI. It's my understanding the governor will be traveling to focus in on this effort. And it is that hard ask. It is that let's see if these governments will help us in this realm in moving underutilized equipment from one jurisdiction to another in this effort to try to grow our numbers here. We don't see another avenue because, to your point, we don't have the money to keep popping into subsidies. And mind you, our friends across the pond are moving away from it as well. So they don't see the relevance in doing it as well.
But there are two tourism initiatives that I see private sector partnership with private sector is involved. One of that is the sports tourism, if you may. I know the private sector is deeply involved in that one.
Yes.
I heard about the student tourism. How is the private sector comes into play into the one? Is there any private company that's taking a role in the student tourism?
The only thing that I am aware of is the private schools that are joining in sister city and sister school events. We have a significant number of that coming, but we also do have a significant number of sports confederations and federations
Yes,
within the
that's
Commonwealth,
what I'm aware
right,
of. Yeah.
who have relationships with teams and cities and organizations and clubs in other source countries. So badminton is a big one that is growing exponentially. In fact, there is a proposal to look at building a badminton facility in the Commonwealth. For since the mini games, the last 3 summers, we have hosted at the Added Gym Olympic qualifying events in the badminton world. And that has been tremendous in the ISL realm. And so we're seeing hundreds, if not thousands, of kids interested in at least engaging in it. And we had one of the largest cohorts of U17 kids involved in a tournament qualifier to go off to games that are going to be hosted in New Zealand, New Zealand and Australia. So that's just one aspect of tourism, sports tourism that's being played out. We have seen it in baseball, again, to Commissioner Anthony Torres' support. MVA has partnered with his group to build out, my understanding, bullpens at the Tancoa field so that we can host, again, the professional teams and the college teams from Korea and Japan in the Commonwealth. And so this growing momentum is hitting every single sport, and we're trying to do it. This is NUMSA, this is federations, this is the governor's office, this is the mayor's office, this is many different facets of our community that are going after the kids, the schools, and the sports.
I know golf, I think the golf is also like
There's a Korea
Korean
component,
market,
yes,
right.
yeah, absolutely.
If I can just, if I can add,
So one of the things that the tourism task force, when we met the other day, was we asked the CPA to start CPA and MVA for a list of projects, and prioritize them into different no budget or low budget, minimal budget, and have these list of projects all the way to the projects that were going to cost a lot more. And then once we have those projects, then we'll be able to tackle and maybe prioritize and pick and choose which projects we should go seek funding for, whether it be federal funds or local funds, or find ways to fund them. But I think starting with a list of projects, some of them are repairs, like the Beach Road pathway, for example, was highlighted that it was damaged by the storm. These are the little things, again, the low-hanging fruit that, if we can tackle it with our own resources, let's just do it. Let's not wait for a grant, for example. And so once we get that list of projects, we have our next meeting in a couple weeks, and then we'll look at that and present that to the governor and say, hey, can we go start, or the legislature, or both, and say, can we just start pulling from here and there to start helping ourselves? We cannot afford to wait for the federal government to come in and help us with the lobbies. We have to help ourselves and just do it now.
When you're talking about improving what our offering is and stuff like it, you're networking with with the government officials and some like the top community folks here as well. Does it become an education opportunity? We just had that video about the dumping that was happening, and that was by one of your members who is directing his folks to do that. He spoke with BECQ. They told him, hey, you can't do it. Now he's good about that. But does that happen? I mean, does that conversation enter any of these things?
I don't. With that particular situation, I don't know all the details of that other than reading your story, which you covered. But I think that that incident may highlight our policies on solid waste management and some of our approach. As you know, in the last Jusea and this current Jusea, we're still big proponents of universal garbage collection, right? Which includes transfer stations, convenient transfer stations at all the areas of Saipan. So how do we handle white goods? How do we handle junk cars? There's a lot of junk cars on the island right now. Some are being abandoned by people that left the island for good. We don't even have the owners anymore. So, if anything, let's take, an unfortunate situation and make good out of it, right? And bring awareness to the community, or re-awareness that we do have a solid waste situation in front of us. We're a lot better than a lot of places, let me put it this way, when it comes to solid waste. I've been traveling recently and I'm saddened about even our neighboring islands around us. I'm not going to name countries or territories, but have really big solid waste management issues. So before we get there, I don't know, I would hate for them, Marianas or the CNMI to ever get down that road, but to me it's never too, we can never be too clean and tidy. We're a tourism destination, and so everyone should take part. Everyone should clean their own yard, right, regularly. You don't have to wait for your neighbor to complain. We should all do our small part with our own businesses within government to keep our place tidy.
You're chair of the tourism of the committee for the tourism. So have you been made aware of any plans of so the two things going on at the same thing with regards to MARPI? One is a waste to energy plant that would be happening very close to the solid waste facility, and a move that people are looking at turning a lot of MARPI into an industrial area for manufacturing.
I haven't heard I've heard about the waste to energy over many years, and that logically would see being next to a solid waste management system that could feed that. Whether that's viable, I don't know. I think at the end of the day, if there's an ability to do it safely, cleanly, environmentally safely, then why not? I just don't know if we've got a sufficient volume in order to make it viable. As far as the industrial complex, I have not heard that for MARPI at all. We still have plenty of space down in lower base that could be reutilized. There's still industrial land across the middle road as well, that's available for lease. And so I would hope we utilize those spaces that have been former locations of industrial light manufacturing, that we go after those spaces before we look at, environmentally beautiful locations like Marpy.
Yeah, and that was the thing with that waste energy, the same thing during the IRP back in 2015 was about, whether or not there would be enough of that waste. But this particular proposal would involve bringing waste from Guam to Saipan to fuel that.
I have not had any conversation with that or been involved in that at all. That's a policy decision on the administration.
I just want to ask regarding EdStop or any update on our visa entry enhancement or any inclusion of other markets for the visa-free entry for the cinema.
I think you're aware that the governor has written a letter, along with Governor Liu from Guam, endorsing the idea of having visa waiver. As you know, the 110.229 provision requires that both governors approve of the idea behind visas and advocate for them. They are advocating for a Philippine visa, visitor visa waiver for the cinema in Guam. And we're hopeful that they're successful because we think that direct carriage from the Philippines would be helpful. It's something strategically we're talking about as well. There is an airline that is doing a route study today for that very reason, is the movement of personnel and human resources from the Philippines into the islands, and vice tourism, a component of getting tourism as well, with people that do have H-2B visas in the Philippines today. But it is hopeful that we are able to achieve a visa waiver for the Philippines.
And our EdStop actually is the TAP EdStop, the automatic visa online. What do they call this?
8 EBS tabs?
Yeah. How is it going now? We seems to have a few months ago we have some kind of like issues,
there was a
right? We
disruption
got denial,
from
but now it's flowing.
Yeah, there was a disruption from an executive order that looked at all visas. And so there was a Homeland Security effort to just stop entry and visas from literally 141 visas that are available within the United States visa system to move people across borders. There's a lot of visas. And so we just happened to be a group that fell into that, and it took a little time to vet it. They did, so it's running smooth as today, as we know. We operate and help operate one of the flights from Hong Kong, and so the flight from Hong Kong, and it has been relatively smooth since that timeline.
Now that the federal government shutdown has ended, the federal government is restarting, and we're hopeful that the request from the governor regarding the visa waiver would now be going to move forward. So there are a lot of things, just about every agency that I speak with, have been affected here in the CNMI by the shutdown. So we're happy that that's behind us. One of the things also that through my participation as co-chair of I've been asked to sit on the Fiscal Reform Committee. Fiscal Reform Committee was formed 2 weeks ago by the governor as part of one of the conditions of the grant from the Office of Insular Affairs a couple weeks ago. Right? So that Fiscal Reform Committee is tasked with coming up with a list of fiscal reforms, CNMI, but as well as identifying economic opportunities, economic barriers, things that we can do on our own to allow for increased economic activities. Everything from consolidation of government services or departments or functions to cutting, as you already know, the austerity is part of the fiscal reform. But everything is being looked at within this committee, and it's a good cross-section of government and private sector involvement. So that's what has been keeping both CG and I very busy in the Fiscal Reform Committee. And I guess the neat thing about the Fiscal Reform is a lot of the ideas that they're talking about are the same concepts and initiatives that the council is also looking at. And so once the Fiscal Committee task is done, which is to create this report to the Office of Insular Affairs on November 30, Then from there, the governor said that he will hand over many of the initiatives that are discussed in the fiscal reform over to Gisea, and then we'll be able to take it over and help kind of move some of those things forward. Some of them, will involve private sector input, of course, and community input. So we're looking forward to that report. We hate to be in the situation where it's part of a grant condition, but I guess it's fortunate as well that we're being forced to really look at everything and explore all avenues.
And if I can add, I think it just goes to show, in addition to some of these things are going to get passed over from FRC, the fiscal reform, to just say that, but I think it also shows the utility of just saying this whole government approach that we're part of. A lot of the ideas that are being reviewed by the committee actually came out of the original, just say a few years ago. And I think just cements the idea that we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. I think that was something that we threw around in our first press conference. There's a lot of these plans that we mentioned that are quite feasible, and we just need to adopt them and see how that can assist in other areas, like the FRC and this whole government approach that this administration is pursuing. And it's been quite fruitful so far, and SEA will be able to progress because of the outcome of that report at the end of the month. I want to be cognizant of time. I know we started late, but yeah, we'll take maybe 2 more questions.
Yeah, just real quick, I asked the mayor this, and I didn't know if I got like a great answer for it. But walking around Garapan, it's great that the lights are working and stuff like that. I know the bushes are getting a little bit bushy. But for things that aren't organic like that, like the litter around there, you see some like beer bottles, beer cans, some garbage around. Who is responsible for like keeping the Garapan tourism area kind of clean from trash? Aside from every business owner and everything like that, is there an organization that goes around to make sure the streets are kind of clean and free of garbage?
Yeah. So I think it'd be easy to say that's all of our job, right? But we've seen great progress, and we've received updates from the governor's office actually on operations. What I believe it was DLNR or DPW. Thanks, Alex. That have actually been assisting in cleaning up the Garapan, tourist area. And we appreciate the governor's office for moving forward on that quickly. But I think there are a lot of stakeholders on the government side that are involved in that. We're trying to get more. Alex had mentioned, Department of Corrections, for example, Commissioner Torres has committed to help revitalize other tourist sites, sports sites. But to answer your question, right now, we're seeing, all hands on deck from DPW. That has the central government to kind of push that forward. We're not going to, wait around for someone to take that up, and so the government is actively, pursuing those measures.
Like, was there like I know this is not necessarily directly part of the mission for Gisea or anything, but just something walking around with my daughter on Halloween, just stuff that I noticed on the streets and some stuff that could be there for a few days. I'm not talking about like the buildings and stuff like that, but just trash on the streets and stuff like that. Is there a response line, or is there somebody who would be charged with making sure that stuff does get done? You're thinking it's DLNR or DPW?
Still under DPW.
Under DPW, naturally. But I think that was the opportunity that, to say that at least our organization is open to hearing about, issues around the island, right? And we're able to flag that on our side. And, as Alex mentioned, we want there to be public-private partnerships. So if we can mobilize resources with what we have, we'd love to hear about, issues that are around the island. And the best way to do that is from the public, right? Granted through proper avenues so that it comes up our communication channels, and we can see who we can get on the government side, at least mobilize, and then have our council members, a lot of which are from the private sector, try to mobilize their networks as well.
That's what, so DPW has the authority over that area about the right of ways and the trash gets. But what I've seen is DPW, we get reported to DPW or the mayor's office, and the mayor's office would act on it. And it's like it's coordinated, but maybe it's not the best solution, and that's one of the things that the tourism task force is going to be looking at, right? That's like the heart of the effort. It's like our growth fund for a lot of our tourists. And so we'll be coming up with some recommendations and seeking input from all stakeholders and just coming out with a plan. So we'll make sure that the trash, like you mentioned, doesn't stay on the sidewalks for too long. So.
What about speaking of Garapan and the infrastructures there? Like, it's been a while since there's a lot of businesses that closed, so there's a lot of empty, abandoned, dilapidated buildings around. Do you guys have any plans or heard of any investors that probably interested in like that big, previous Tea Galleria building in the heart of Garapan, as well as maybe the movie theaters with all these exits of all these legacy businesses? Is there any plans in the works for our side, or maybe you guys have potential investors that are looking at maybe revitalizing any of these buildings or businesses?
I don't know of any plan from Jasea. We haven't tackled that concern, but I do know that it's kind of like a chicken and the egg right now. Right? A lot of investors will come if they know that airlines are going to come and tourists are going to come. So I think what we can do in the meantime, until we get to a level where we have tourists coming in, is we'll work with zoning. I know zoning. I met with them and they are looking at. They've actually issued a lot of warnings to buildings within Garapan area, Garapan core in particular. Issued warnings. Many of them have been resolved right away. So people go up and start painting and moving things around. So, but yeah, if you see anything out there that doesn't look right, zoning is very open. I've told personally about things that I didn't like seeing in Garapan and around the island. So they really appreciate it. They're just poor zoning. They're understaffed, overworked. They're trying to cover the whole island, but the more they hear from everyone, including yourself, they'll be happy to act on it. So I think we need to support zoning and everyone helping with that effort. So.
It's Friday. We're about to get out of here. Can you get us out of here on a good note? You think, like something we can be excited about
Right.
with what's happening?
I think your council is working hard, really hard. I mean, we're from here, as you can see. We're born and raised here. There's two of us, we really take things personally in our role here at the council, and just like you, everyone here that has made the scene my home. A lot of these things really matter to us. None of us here are doing this for personal gain, or this is just pure community service and love for a place we call home. So, we don't have a breaking news, this month, but rest assured that I think we're taking the right steps toward really bettering ourselves. It's all the small little things that end up, making a difference. And so there's no one big thing, but maybe that question is good for CETA. Ask CETA a question, because whenever I would see them, like, oh yeah, there was this one investor, so they might have some breaking news that unfortunately maybe just say it's not the place for breaking news. Were they here today?
Was anyone here from CETA at all?
Mike Sablon was there.
Okay.
Yeah, it was here. So.
They just had an investor come in and talk about utilities this week, so that should be some good news.
Okay. Yeah, definitely there are things happening, and so we're at this point where we just need to focus on the things that we can do, right? Like cleaning up our places, both individual and businesses, and seeing how we can pitch in. So be on the lookout for announcements for beach cleanups or maybe Garapan Corp cleanup, and we'd love to see you there pitch it as well.
Great. Thank you guys so much. Expect a readout from the council secretariat on our discussions today. We'll try to keep it as substantive as possible, and I'll keep you guys updated. Appreciate the patience as we kind of navigate, and we're all for full transparency, so we love your questions, and feel free to email me any additional inquiries. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So that's going to wrap us up here from the governor's